Hello and welcome everybody to episode 66 of Comic DNA X edition number 8, where my good buddy Alex Harner and I discuss the classic Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, sorry, had a little slip of the tongue there, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby X-Men issues. This issue features the uncanny threat of Unus the Untouchable.
Unus.
Eunice,
as some people say. It's a word that's been lost to history. It's practically Greek. I don't know.
I want to say Unus because Eunice. I feel like there should be a Y in there somewhere for or an E for like Eustace. You know.
Unus, Eustace. That's fair.
Yeah.
We'll stick with Unus for today.
We're gonna say Unus because it's funnier, I think.
Fair enough.
So we're talking about issue number 8 of the original X-Men, Unus the Untouchable. Now, when we left off from the previous episode, Alex, you and I, we had... I'm almost embarrassed to say it was a pretty boring discussion about issue number 7. Like, we just did not have much to say.
I feel like our spirits were at a low point.
Yeah.
I've never felt... Well, no. I was going to say I've never felt so let down by an X-Men comic.
No, I know for a fact that that's not true. You have a lot of X-Men comics
that have made me sad.
But yeah,
angry.
It was just overall dull and not very moving. Not a lot to talk about.
Right.
We're not going to dwell
Stale
on it.
was the word that we used many times.
Stale is the word that we kept coming back to. So I am confident in saying, as I was kind of hoping / predicting at the end of the previous episode, that this episode we will actually have a lot to talk about with this issue.
Yeah.
And I dare say I think my prediction was correct.
I feel like there's more to talk about than the last episode, certainly.
Absolutely. Well,
so that's
I think it is my turn to do the plot description, if I'm not mistaken. So,
yes, it is.
Let's just jump right into it. I'm going to try to be as concise as possible. I confess, Alex and I are both having a good time Friday night, and I'm about 5 whiskey colas deep. So
whiskey colas. I'm drinking pale ales. That's how we do in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, well, when you live alone in a basement, you drink whiskey.
Whiskey's great, actually.
It really is, yeah. But we're not doing a podcast about whiskey. We're doing a podcast about Unus the Untouchable. So, one of the things that I was very happy to see, that this issue opens with the X-Men in the Danger Room. And it's a very vibrant, colorful sequence, going a couple of pages, actually, of Cyclops putting them through their paces. Because going with the continuity from the previous issues, Professor X is still gone. And he left Cyclops in charge, and Cyclops is trying to be as diligent of a taskmaster as Professor X was. And you get some fun... I like it. Some fun character sequences of just Cyclops trying to test them on their powers and really just kind of bossing them around and trying to be as big of a jerk as Professor X is. And, yeah,
I think so.
I dare say he lives up to it. But then the sequence cuts away to Beast and Iceman going out for some fun time out on the town. And, of course, Cyclops can't join them because he's got to stay back and work and be the leader, be the guy in charge. And
he's got a lot of paperwork or something.
It's something. Yeah, there's a lot of red tape involved in Westchester at the X-Mansion.
He's got to sit at the desk and brood. That seems to be his thing.
He's following in Professor X's footsteps.
Right.
But the sequence next kind of launches right into it. We get some solid superheroics. There's a little boy trapped on a water tower at the top of a building. And they don't know how he got there exactly. They suppose maybe he climbed up there as a prank and he can't get down. Like a dumb cat in a tree or a cat on a roof.
Kids, cats, they're all the same.
Yeah.
Climbing things, getting stuck.
So we get this, what I would say is a really great sequence where Beast, throwing caution to the wind and with total disregard of whether or not people will discover his identity, immediately, not in costume, climbs the building to save the kid. And it's straightforward superhero drama. Saves the kid, rescues the kid, puts him back to his little apartment there. And then we get a couple of panels where there's a crowd watching, and they get all riled up because they figure that this guy that just ran up the building like a monkey must be a mutant. And they get really mad and really angry, and they form a mob and start attacking Beast and Iceman. And Beast and Iceman are forced to run away. And Beast is enraged and that he's had to put up with all this, and he quits the X-Men.
It's a pretty dramatic moment.
It's a very dramatic moment, and Cyclops does not know how to deal with it, and he blames himself as he's failed as the leader. that this would happen on his watch, even though he wasn't there and he had no say in the matter at all. But he's still really upset. So he tries to contact Professor X, and we get this incredibly weird scene, which I will say leads right into leads into the next issue. This will all be resolved.
We'll return to this.
Yeah, we'll return to this.
Yeah.
But apparently Professor X is like spelunking in a cave in Europe. And he just throws out he really can't help Cyclops. He's like, don't do anything. Beast isn't going to join the evil mutants. Cyclops is worried that if Beast quits the X-Men, he's going to immediately join Magneto. And Professor X just kind of soothes him and just says, don't worry about it. He's not going to do it. You did everything you could. It's actually really good advice from Professor X. He's basically telling Cyclops not to be so hard on himself.
This sequence is amazing. We're going to talk about it totally.
We are. We really are. Yeah.
I don't want to sidetrack.
No, you're right. You're right. We'll definitely get into it. So Beast quits and goes and becomes a professional wrestler. And it is there, as a professional wrestler, that he meets this mysterious fellow that is his opponent, Unus the Untouchable.
Unus.
We're going with Unus. And no matter what Beast does, he literally, quite literally, cannot touch this guy.
He's deflected.
Within a few inches or maybe even a foot, he just bounces off of the guy. He can't get anywhere near him. And it is revealed that Unus is actually a mutant, and that he is trying out for Magneto's Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. He's been requested to join.
It's the team people want to be on, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. So he's really trying to get on this team. And Mastermind, the character that we've talked about in the past, probably the most uninteresting of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, who is also the most obviously evil out of all of them, except for maybe Magneto. I mean, let's be fair.
But he's greasier than Magneto.
He's greasier, yeah. He meets with Unus, and he gives him a directive. He says, Magneto will let you join the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants if you can defeat one of the X-Men. It'd be great if you could beat all of them, but if you could just beat one of them, that would be enough. So
that's his test.
There's a series of events that that's his test. There's a series of events that lead Unus to taking on the X-Men. He gets involved in some crime. I'm not going to go through the details here. And the X-Men show up and they try to fight him, and they can't stop him because of his incredible power. Nothing, literally, it's his name. It's right in the name. He's untouchable. Literally nothing can touch him. And without going too far into it, this is where the story, the plot, starts to break down for me without sounding too arrogant, a sophisticated 21st century boy.
You pretentious critic.
I know, right?
I hate you.
So they
kidding, I don't hate you.
I know. The X-Men leave Unus stranded at the top of a skyscraper, and then they just leave. And they go back to the X-Mansion, and they're shocked to see Beast is there. And he's building some kind of a weapon.
He's back.
Beast is back. He's wearing his costume. And first they're happy that he's back. But then he reveals that the weapon he's building is a ray that is designed to increase Unus's power. And the X-Men are alarmed because they think that Beast has actually turned to the dark side. He's going to join Magneto like Cyclops feared. So they try to stop him, but Beast evades them all, runs away, and he finds Unus and uses his ray on Unus, which makes him even more untouchable.
Why would you do this, Cyclops?
Right.
You made him unstoppable.
Beast. Why would Beast do this?
Beast. You're right.
Well, Cyclops is the one that's just incredulous that Beast could do this.
Right.
And
no, you're right. I totally messed that up.
That's all right. I think we're having a good time, and that's all that matters.
You're doing quite well at this. Continue.
I mean, we're almost to the end here. So Beast uses the ray on Unus, and Unus is even more untouchable. Like now, instead of things stopping a few inches from him, things bounce away from him like a few feet away from him.
And not just things that are attacking him, like everything.
Anything. Yeah, like everything, just like he's completely invincible. Like he cannot be touched. And the X-Men are just shocked that Beast would do this. Unus thinks that Beast is a traitor and is trying to join the Brotherhood also, and thinks that Beast is doing him a favor. And so the X-Men basically just keep Beast as a prisoner, knowing that Beast can do nothing while he's with them. And then Unus just kind of goes about his day. He just leaves, and he goes to the...
There's some good dialogue there. We'll return to it.
There's some really good stuff. And who would have thunk it? Unus is so untouchable that he literally can't touch anything. He tries to smoke a cigarette, but the pack flies away from him. He can't grab it.
He not only can't be touched, he can't touch. It's like Newton's law.
Yeah.
It's like... Is it like Newton's law? I don't know.
He goes to a diner and he can't eat, and he's starving because all the food is flying away from him.
He reaches for a thing and it goes away from him.
Yes. And Beast shows up. And then the X-Men realize that what Beast was doing was actually not helping Unus, and he was torturing him, I guess, in some way. And he has the ray, and he says that another blast from the ray will return him to his previous conditions. But he better watch out and remember that Beast always has that ray, so if he ever decides to join the evil mutants, he'll just use it on him, and then Unus will probably starve to death because he won't ever be able to eat food.
Which... What a just vicious way to finish a foe.
Right.
That's right, we're starving you to death.
Right.
The heroes are starving you to death.
So they return him to his previous power level, which made him a famous wrestling star. And then he decides he's had it with the costumed, superpowered adventurers. He's just going to go back to the wrestling ring where he belongs. And it's a total victory for the X-Men. Oh, and Beast is back with the X-Men where he belongs too. The end. Oh, man. Okay. I don't even know where to begin with this, Alex. First impressions. You
I was entertained. That is my first impression.
True enough.
Yes,
I really was. I agree.
After the last issue, which I read it and I was like struggling to pay attention and get through Stan Lee's long, wordy dialogue bits, and I didn't care about the formula because it was all stuff we'd seen before. This was much more fun.
It was. This issue also doesn't feel as overwritten as the previous issue.
Yeah, I agree.
Even though there
I think because it wasn't just repeating things that had been like established like 3 times previously.
Right. I mean, we complained about it incessantly on the previous issue, but this issue at least was something new. It was a new character. It wasn't a literal repeat of the previous issue. You know, Magneto's
there was no inclusion.
Yeah.
Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver were not in this issue.
Right.
And they didn't talk about the debt that they had to repay, so automatic plus to this issue.
Exactly, yes. Yeah, I would agree. My basic response to this issue is I really loved the start of it. I really loved the setup. I was entertained by it, like you said. The character is funny. The situation is kind of kitschy, fun, but entertaining enough. But the arrogant, pretentious jerk in me just cannot stand the kind of like weak, lazy twist of it all. Like the ending is it's designed to be like a Twilight Zone episode.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where it's like they sort of like they try to like the villain gets defeated by his own hubris in his own way. You know, it's just this whole gotcha ending.
Sure, it sets it up as this like this is this great thing. He's unbeatable. What an awesome power. And then it's like, but there's a dark side.
Yeah.
There's a negative, outcome to how this could play out.
Right.
Which I don't know. It didn't bother me. I think that's kind of classic, actually.
That doesn't bother me as much as Cyclops keeping Beast under observation, because at no point does Beast ever just say, hey, I'm doing this to teach him a lesson because it's going to have a negative effect on him. I'm increasing his power and it's actually going to not be in his favor. Like, he doesn't, like, the dialogue from Beast literally is, just wait and see. It's for your own good. What am I watching?
Stupid.
What am I watching? Lost here? Like did Damien Lindelof write this comic? Like, it bothers me so much when characters won't just state clearly
sloppy.
What's going on.
Right.
For the sake of tension.
Right, for the sake of tension. And for the sake of tension, there's no reason that Beast couldn't have said, he could have said the exact same thing, and Cyclops could have said, we trust you, now let's watch.
Exactly.
As opposed to it returning to Cyclops and Beast, like, I don't know, however many times it returns to it, like 2 or 3 times.
It's a couple of times.
And every time they're like, he's turned to Magneto.
Yeah.
Like, we know he hasn't turned to Magneto.
Right.
Like, even as a 4-year-old, I wouldn't have understood the words.
Right. As a 10-year-old from 1964.
As a 10-year-old, I would have been like, this is dumb.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. This is not compelling.
Yeah, I totally agree. That was a good 2 or 3 seasons. No, 4 seasons of Lost. 6 seasons of Lost.
Like the whole show is characters not talking clearly and truthfully for the sake of drama.
Talk like humans.
Yeah.
Just like humans to each other.
Yes, exactly. What did Beast have to lose? What reason did Beast not tell them what he was doing? Would they not have gone along with it? There was no reason to think that they wouldn't have.
Right. He's their friend.
That actually would have made more sense. For Beast to be like, I'm going to do this. This is my plan. It's going to increase his power, and he's going to regret it. And for Cyclops to say, that's a stupid plan. I don't think it's going to work, and I'm the boss, so don't do it. And for Beast to say, no, I'm going to do it anyway. And then there's your conflict.
Right. Then it's not about, is Beast actually going to the evil mutants? It's just about, strategy. It's about leadership and who's got the best approach.
Yeah, exactly. Who's got the best approach. And you can still do the whole thing about Cyclops doubting himself as the leader.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's good stuff.
Yeah, that's... I always hesitate to go into, like, when I'm critically reviewing things, especially negatively, I'm always hesitant to go into this is what they should have done, because I do think it's important to talk about what was done, not what could have been done, if that makes any sense.
I think so.
I think there's a danger in just saying, like, well, they should have done this and they should have done that, because then you're not really talking about what they did and what they were going for necessarily. You're just talking about what you would have wanted.
Right. Well, I mean, there's a difference between saying, here's the stuff that I think is cool that should have been included, and here's the clear intent of the comic. or the story. Here's the
Yeah.
clear intent of the story, and why did they take this detour?
It was for cheap drama about whether or not Beast was going to join the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. That's what it was. Because
That's fair.
let's talk about the earlier sequences, because the sequence that set up why Beast quit was fantastic.
Yeah,
I loved
it.
it.
Was good.
It was classic X-Men.
Yeah.
It was straight superhero comics. It was the whole drama of your secret identity and your civilian life, and Beast completely just went with it. He knew that he did the right thing. He had to rescue the kid. Iceman Bobby is like cautioning him, not to do it because he's going to give his identity away. But Beast does it anyway because he is that good of a person. He's that superhero, and the thanks he gets is that he gets almost beaten up by a mob of people who are whipped up into a frenzy because they think he's a mutant. And it's actually it's incredible, the dialogue about how they suspect he's a mutant because of his superpowers, and then they all start talking to each other about what's going on, and one of them throws out the idea that he probably saved the kid just to throw them off their guard, to make them think that mutants aren't dangerous. And it's just this beautiful mob mentality where they just really are completely irrational and lost in their rage. And that's a tough thing to deal with. Like, I can see that. Like, that is the core of the X-Men, the heavy themes.
Sure, and it's a totally justifiable and understandable reason to want to quit.
Exactly.
Like, the whole setup it makes sense. I think my frustration with this sequence is that it's taken a little bit of time for Stan Lee and Kirby to flesh out the sort of view of mutants in this world.
Oh, absolutely.
And so if we take it just within this issue, I think it's strong. And just within this sequence, I think it's very strong, because you're getting the crowd sort of being for him but not knowing what to think, and then convincing themselves that he's not trustworthy, and then working themselves into the angry mob.
Yes.
It's great within the sequence. But taken within what has been established in the past, what are we on, issue 8? So the past 7 issues, we go from the X-Men as being pretty well liked, and apparently they know they're mutants, to mutants not being trusted. But as long as they're like the X-Men, they're trusted. But if they're not dressed as the X-Men, then they're not trusted.
Right.
And I chalk that up to Stan Lee and Jack Kirby kind of working out the concept.
Yes.
Early on, they weren't totally sure where it was going, and now they're sort of zeroing in on what they think works best. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I agree, because it was the second issue that had them all being mobbed by fangirls.
Right.
That were like, oh my god, costume superheroes, we love them. And then, a few issues later, it's, oh, they're mutants, we hate them. So there's that little bit of disconnect there. I would make the argument that Marvel has been struggling with that almost the entire
ever since
of the X-Men. Yes.
Sure. Okay.
Because that has always sort of been a problem. They never really handled why some superheroes are just accepted because they're great and they're superheroes, and then mutants are hated. Sure. I think for the most part, I think they did a good job of kind of making the general public distrustworthy of superheroes in general in their universe. I mean, because Spider-Man, that was Spider-Man's whole thing, was that. I actually think that's one of the greatest things about Spider-Man, is that he's well liked by the public. Like, people like him because he does good things, but he also has people that hate him and think he's a menace. And and
there are two sides to it.
Yeah, there's two sides to it, and it's actually really well done. And the X-Men, it's a weird thing. There are times where it's handled really well, and then there are times where it's like, why do people like the Hulk but they hate the most benign X-Man, like, and that's not even entirely fair, because part of the Hulk's whole thing is that people hate and fear him. That's another character. But then there are times where the Hulk, everybody loves him. So it kind of goes back and forth on that. I would say that that's just a general. It's like the general schizophrenic nature of Marvel Universe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it. What can I say here other than that's always been attention, right?
Yeah,
it's never totally made sense.
Yeah, but as you said, in this issue, this sequence just taken from this issue, I think it's really strong, and I think it's really good, and it sells the concept. If nothing else, it makes it distinct from their other books for sure.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Within this issue, it's great.
Yeah. And I also think it's good that it's Beast that is the one that kind of, because he's the most interesting character out of all of them, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's the character that, I don't know, you want to see have this kind of conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's the one I think is most fit to deal with it.
Yeah. Well, I would say either Beast or maybe Jean Grey.
Yeah. Jean Grey could have handled it.
Or Cyclops, but he's sort of been moved to this leadership position, so he's sort of locked in, like that's his thing right now.
Yeah.
But Iceman is the Joker, and Angel is kind of the arrogant, vain guy. But Beast is the thoughtful guy.
He's thoughtful,
so
right?
Having Beast have a crisis of conscience works.
Exactly. He's the one who's supposed to be able to think clearly about this and know better, but he's still, reacting on gut instinct. It's like you said, it's a crisis of conscience, and it works for his character, I think, really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's solid.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good bit of drama that was lacking from the last issue.
It was, yeah.
Where we're just getting kind of a lot of more of the same and sort of predictable cliche bits.
Yeah. But so that's a good sequence. I really like it, and it leads directly into the strange sequence of what's going on with Professor X after he left the X-Men to go do his weird stuff.
Yeah. This is pure setup for a future issue.
Yeah,
I hope.
It is. It's just like 4 panels. And
well, so Cyclops needs help. He calls out to Professor X via Cerebro, and Professor X is deep in a cave in the Balkans in like a tank wheelchair.
Yeah.
Hunting down Lucifer.
Just the way that's casually thrown out there. My favorite bit about that is, like, Cyclops is like, Professor, are you there? I need some help. And he's like, oh, I'm deep in the Balkans in Europe in an almost bottomless cave. What can I help you with? And Cyclops lays out the situation. Beast is going to quit. And Professor X is like, don't worry about it. He's not going to join the evil mutants. You did all you could. And then Cyclops is like, well, so what's going on with you? And Professor X is like, I can't talk about that right now. I'm on the trail of Lucifer. Just throws that out there. What? He's like, and then his panel is like, it looks like he's in hell.
Right, the panel is like a nightmare.
Yeah.
It's like...
I'll tell you about it one day.
Red and... Yeah.
And then that's the end of that.
So silly. Taryn, it's so silly. My wife's like, what are we laughing at? What is this thing? It's very silly.
And that's all we get from that. And then we just move on to the rest of this issue, the rest of this story.
You gotta know. Is Professor X hunting the devil?
The devil? Well, I'll satiate your curiosity and tell you that you'll find out in the next issue, for sure.
Yeah. I actually looked at the cover of the next issue, and it looks like it might not be the devil, but we'll see. We'll see.
My lips are sealed until the next episode.
All right. We're going to hold everyone in suspense.
But anyway, so moving on with this issue.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think about the character of Unus? Another character with ill-defined powers.
Yeah. He's a little flat.
Yeah.
I mean, so
I'll say one thing real quick.
Okay.
I know you're formulating thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that in the wrestling setting, Stan Lee was actually very clear about this. Was that Beast becomes a professional wrestler, and he actually, like, in the narration, Stan Lee's actually throwing out some wrestling terminology. And Beast is playing a villain wrestler, and Unus
what does he call him? A heavy?
Yeah, he calls him a heavy because he's
under the logical name of the Beast.
Yeah, he calls him a heavy, but he's playing a wrestling villain, and Unus is the hero villain. Because he's playing. This term isn't used in this issue. I don't know if this term was around in the early '60s, but Unus would be playing the babyface.
Okay.
Which is a wrestling term for the hero, like the good guy. And I think that's actually a really great development of this guy. He's a successful wrestler, and he's playing a babyface. He's playing a hero, but he's actually kind of a jerk, and he wants to be a real-life villain.
Right.
That little juxtaposition. Right. And Beast is a hero who's playing a villain because he's disillusioned with being hero. It's not like really played with a lot in this issue, and it's not the most profound thing in the world, but I like it.
A little interesting contrast there.
I like the situation of Beast trying to wrestle with Unus and all the crowd like booing him because he's the villain and they're supposed to boo the villain because he doesn't know how to wrestle. Which, by the way, that's
wrestling right.
That's my other favorite thing is that in the actual text in the dialogue they say wrestle, R-A-S-S-L-E. Where do you ever learn to wrestle?
Classic.
But it actually
history of wrestling.
I think there's like a nice little juxtaposition there of Beast as a hero getting almost mobbed and booed. And then he's trying to play a villain wrestler for pretend, and he's still getting booed because he's not good at it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It adds a little bit of depth to Unus. So I really like this. I think the strongest conceptual side of these X-Men stories has been this this setup where the X-Men, there's a new mutant out there, and the X-Men have to step in.
Yeah.
And basically be like, hey, join us, or please don't join the bad guys. Right. I like that because it presents, it gives the opportunity to present, sort of a unique, colorful character to interact with each time, and the drama should then center around that character's choice or that character's their
motivation, their personal, and like their choice. I agree.
Like what are they after? What makes them tick? What are they pursuing? I think so far we've seen that very clearly with Blob and Namor, and I think those are both pretty strong. At least in that, those issues weren't necessarily strong, but at least within the focus on those characters, those characters were unique. Unus strikes me as less unique. I don't really understand why he's interested in joining Magneto,
right.
Which I think is a bit of an oversight on Stan Lee. Again, these are comics for kids, and maybe some people just want to join the big, strong bad guy. But it wouldn't have been that hard to have some sort of pitch or panel explaining why the hero wrestler, who's clearly very successful, wants to join
the
villain who has been established as a dick for like every issue so far
and constantly loses.
Why do you want to work for this guy?
Right. It would make so much more sense. I guess what's weird to me about this whole thing, and I agree, there's a real lack of motivation for Unus, and and this kind of gets into this whole like armchair quarterback thing where I'm just like, why didn't they just have Magneto try to recruit him? Like, why?
Right.
Why is it like Mastermind is there? Like, Mastermind's at the wrestling match, and Beast recognizes him, and he's like, "Oh, there's something going on here." And then Mastermind goes to meet with Unus, and Unus is like, "Oh, Mastermind, you're here. What's the verdict? Am I gonna get into the evil mutants? Does Magneto think I'm good enough?" Why wasn't Mastermind just there to make a pitch and to just say, "Hey, you're really
Right.
powerful, and we could really use somebody like you, and you think you're doing well now, and you'll do even better as a member of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants." And
Right.
then you could have Unus just be kind of a shallow guy he's not really a good guy. He's only playing a good guy because it's what makes him successful. But he'll just as quickly become a bad guy if it makes him more successful. That is
Right.
like really obvious, simple characterization.
Yeah. There's no pitch at all.
Yeah, exactly.
There's absolutely nothing
Right.
by way of a compelling
There's
reason for him to pursue this.
There's no moral drama. There's no nothing. In fact,
It doesn't even like moral drama would be great if he was like, this is a chance to join an organization that could change the world.
Yeah.
He could even say like, join us and we'll pay you $100 million. There's nothing.
Nothing.
It's just like, if you want to join the evil team, do this.
Right. In fact,
and Unis is like, well, I want to join the evil team.
he's begging them to join, and they're like, "No, you have to prove yourself." This fucking collection of lackeys and half-wits that can't beat one X-Men at a time, they're demanding that Unus, the character who's proven that he literally cannot be touched by anybody, they're demanding that he prove himself. Ugh. It doesn't make any cohesive sense.
Yeah, there's a real lack of. There's a few essential panels missing from this story.
Right.
And it only would have taken a few. It only would have taken a few sentences.
It wouldn't have even taken
establish
a
a
few.
reason.
It wouldn't have even taken a few more panels. It would have just taken a few rewrites and the relettering of like the one page, the page where Mastermind goes to meet Unus, and Unus is like begging to join Mastermind. You could rewrite those 3 panels and just Mastermind be to say, "You think you're doing good now? I got something that's even better. Go kill an X-Man, and you will achieve riches beyond your wildest dreams." And Unus is the kind of shallow person who would do it.
It would have been so easy.
It would have been so easy.
It would have. It's not even a matter of it being easy. It just would have established like why Unus is here.
Right? Yeah. Why this guy?
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Like I said. This is where it like starts to break down for me, and I guess maybe the reason I'm complaining about it so much is because I think the earlier sequences in the book are actually great. I think they completely sell the whole concept of the X-Men. I think they underline the importance of what's going on in this book. And then it's really shallow, cheap villain nonsense. It's frustrating.
It is frustrating. I think this is actually, relative to the past few issues, a pretty strong issue.
I do too, actually. That's what I was about to say.
But that glaring omission really hurts the story. It really hurts. It really hurts his ability to work as a coherent, like, intentional bit of storytelling.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
I don't know. I don't know what you're gonna do.
So, I mean, I guess we just have to accept, as is given, that Unus is just this kind of shallow meathead who wants to join the bad guys, and who knows why.
Right.
He's a bad guy.
He's a bad guy.
Unus is a bad guy, and he wants to join the bad guys.
We don't know why Mastermind is there. He's a bad guy, I guess.
Right. Some people are just bad guys, so that's a simple enough 1960s kids comic bit, even though Marvel was trying to do more than that.
Yeah, I guess that is what bothers me, is because it feels really shallow. When we talked about this a lot in the previous episode, it feels really shallow, even compared to the comics that were being made at the time by the same creators. I will stand by that. It still feels The motivations are pretty cheap
Hmm.
compared to the contemporary books being made at the time.
Sure. Yeah, you noted that with Final
Fantasy.
Final Fantasy. Whoa.
Fantastic Four.
Fantastic Four. There
and
we go.
Spider-Man.
And Spider-Man and even the Avengers to some extent.
To some extent, I actually probably like these X-Men issues more than the Avengers, but
Okay.
that's
Okay.
that's a different discussion.
Okay. So we'll focus on Spider-Man and Fantastic Four.
I do think that Fantastic Four and Spider-Man are better books than these Avengers issues.
Mhm.
And I think it's because they get their characters right for the most part, most of the time. The characterization is really solid. The villains have usually pretty, if not straightforward, understandable motivations. Like even if they're, like what we were just saying, like when Dr. Octopus first showed up, he was just a guy that wanted to start a gang and just be a big crime boss. But like the way it's presented in the story, like it makes sense. There's not all these weird omissions of like how he I don't know. I guess I'm kind of trailing off here, but it just doesn't work for me with Unus just being a jerk trying to join the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. It just doesn't work. If he was trying to start his own like villain empire, that would make more sense to me, even honestly.
Sure. Well, he's not even established as a jerk per se.
Right.
Like even so, the Blob was very early on established as a guy who was rough around the edges.
Right.
He's rude. He's unpleasant.
He's uncouth.
He's yeah.
He's creepy, kind of hitting on Jean Grey, like
yeah,
in an unacceptable way.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So at the very least, early on, it was established that he was kind of this unpleasant guy.
Mm-hmm.
Unus is this hero, and then we cut to him meeting with Mastermind and him being like, "Well, I really have to join the evil mutants." It's not even like he's established as a bad guy. He's just like the good guy who was actually a bad guy because reasons that are never established.
Right.
So it's frustrating.
It is frustrating.
It's what are you gonna do?
I don't know. Comics from
press
the
on,
60s.
I guess.
Yeah.
So let's hop ahead.
Okay.
What do you? I don't know what to say here. So the X-Men attack him, and Beast has a plan.
I lose interest.
It's pretty much just fisticuffs from this point on.
It's
just superheroics.
It's just superheroics. They try to, like, they all try to use their powers against him, but none of them work. Cyclops' energy blast just bounced off of him. Everything just bounces off of him. Nobody can touch him, but he can touch people. And I don't know. I mean, I guess I kind of like the way he grabs Angel, and Angel just flies. There's that sequence where Angel tries to threaten him, and he's like, "You can't hang on forever. You're gonna fall eventually." And Unus calls his bluff. Like, you're no murderers, and I know it. And then Angel's all like disappointed. I was afraid our pledge to never cause harm with our power would one day work against us.
If I hadn't taken that damn pledge, I could murder this man.
Right. I mean, it's a little childish, and maybe like what's the word? Like simplistic, but also not unfair in their motivations. Like a hero wouldn't necessarily just be willing to kill somebody. It makes sense that Angel would not want to let somebody drop from a couple 100 feet, But it's the dialogue is a little clunky. It's a little too overbearing, and how literal and straightforward it is. But that's also sort of the I would say appealing kitsch factor of these old issues.
Sure. Sometimes the strong dialogue and big kind of silly dramatic moment is it's a comic book.
Yeah.
It's got, 22 pages to tell a story.
Right.
This was the 60s. It's a younger audience. There are ways you could tell the story more subtly, but it gets the point across, and it's kind of fun.
And it's part of the absurdity. Charm. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
I agree.
So I won't knock it too much for that.
Yeah, I won't knock that. I will knock Beast making the ray and not even bothering to explain what it does. There's no reason for him to not explain it. There's just literally no reason.
Right.
Other than he doesn't want to. And that's not even like followed up on of like if there was a moment where Beast was like, oh, everything would have gone better if I would have just explained to you. Like if Beast had learned a lesson about teamwork. Maybe you could do something with that. But it's not there. Instead, the X-Men learn a lesson about trusting Beast, I guess. I don't know.
I guess. Could have trusted him better if we just had a conversation like people.
It would be easier to trust him if he wouldn't just be so evasive and not be forthright with us.
Yeah, it's weak.
Yeah, the whole ending, I lose interest in the ending, which honestly is only like the last 4 pages.
Yeah, again, it comes to a very abrupt conclusion.
Right, like all these issues. Yeah.
It seems... At first I thought that was kind of funny. Now I'm just like, yeah, that seems to be just how it was.
Yeah, pretty much. But, I mean, I don't know. I guess it's sort of a victory for the X-Men. Deep down, Cyclops never really lost faith in Hank.
Such a... Like, what?
I know. You never lost faith, and that's why you tried to, like, kill him? Like, maybe not kill, but, they were pretty...
Right, but what was the point in remaining... What was the point in misleading your team?
Yeah, right.
You never lost faith in him, so as leaders, show that you have faith in him.
Right.
I just kind of freaked out, even though I had faith in him, because I wanted my teammates to think worse of him than I actually thought of him. What?
It's childish in the bad way.
It's just kind of... I suspect Stan Lee didn't think that hard about it.
No, I don't think he could have.
Yeah. So I'm glad we get another Kirby technical device to
because
forward the plot.
That's the other fun thing is that of course they never explain they never even attempt to explain how the ray works. Beast just figures it out. He just makes a ray that increases Unus's power, and it's very specific. It works on Unus, like it's for Unus. Right.
How did he figure that out?
Yeah.
Well, he's a genius.
He's smart. Beast is smart. He figures things out.
It's super comic booky.
It is. And to be perfectly honest, that really doesn't bother me as much as the lack of motivation for the characters or the lack of clear talking. Fine, Beast is smart. He knows things about mutants. He figures out a way to make a ray. I can accept that. That's suspension of disbelief. I can accept that. I can't accept lazy dialogue, lazy character motivation, and cheap tension, cheap suspense. Can't accept that.
I agree. Because it's not a hard science.
That's the thing, is it's not hard.
I don't need to understand how Unus's DNA is generating a force field and how Beast has figured out a way to disrupt that field. It's enough that Unus can't be touched and Beast is a genius and he's found a way to zap him.
Right.
That's fine. But I need to know why Cyclops is distrustful of Beast.
Yeah.
I need to know why Unus decides that it's a good idea to join an organization of jerks who continually try to kill each other and no one likes.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And I guess, again, not to just completely keep harping on it, but that should be the easiest thing to figure out. The basic character motivations. To me, that's the simplest thing. The imagination is the coming up with the character powers and the cool visuals. That's sort of the icing on the cake. And there's a lot of that here, but it really fails in what I feel should be the simple, obvious the foundation of the story, basic character motivation.
Mm-hmm.
It's really not there.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know if I have anything else to say about this issue.
I'm not sure I have much else to add.
Yeah. I kind
of go ahead.
I do like the Danger Room sequence early on. It's just fun to see them kind of back doing that, because those were always, I think those are good sequences, and all the other issues that have them.
Yeah.
It's fun, and I like the evolution, if you will, of Iceman's powers and how they manifest. I guess
he's becoming more icy.
Yeah, Kirby got tired of drawing him like a snowman, so they had him actually become like a Iceman.
Yeah,
but it's good. It's the kind of like little progression that works for these kind of stories, these issues.
What'd you think about Cyclops making Jean Grey so?
Oh my God! I forgot the whole Cyclops Jean Grey thing was something we were gonna talk about.
There's actually a few things to talk about.
Yeah, this page itself. There are a couple of things. This whole sequence, but making Jean Grey so is funny.
It's hard not to. Right. I don't want to read too much into it.
Exactly.
I don't want to make a big deal of this, but it's hard not to be like, okay, so all the guys are doing battle things,
right.
And Jean Grey's using her telekinetic powers to sew.
Right. But it's a legitimate.
Come on. It's a legitimate dexterity test.
The way her powers work, but it is a little. I don't know. Just really. Yeah.
It could have been a lot more interesting.
Right.
And excuse me a second, my dog is getting tangled in my headphones. How is this even happening? Pepper. Oh my gosh. I'm about to lose my headphones. Excuse me. Come on. I can't even explain how that just happened.
That's all right.
Dogs. So where were we?
The sequence of Jean Grey sewing.
It makes sense, but also it would be nice if she was actually doing something cool like the other characters,
right?
As opposed to sewing.
It's a pretty lame visual. Yeah, absolutely. And then Cyclops is like examining it, like it's like near perfect except for one stitch which you dropped. Like Cyclops actually knows about sewing.
Right. Next, she's going to use her telekinetic powers to make dinner for all the menfolk. Like,
right. Well, we already saw that.
Could have been better than that.
We saw that in the previous issue where they were celebrating their not the graduation, but where Professor X first announced their 1-year anniversary. This was a couple of issues back. We didn't really talk about it. And
that's true.
Jean Grey was helping him with the baking, and she like cooked all the food, and she was wearing an apron, and it was a little
old timey.
Old timey is how you would put it. Yes.
Sure.
But then again, I hear women like cooking, so I don't know.
I can't say.
I can say that because I'm a professional cook.
So. There you go.
But
I don't know.
I'll say
there's no real point in dwelling on this bit other than
it's not handled the best. I will say this: I think that Jean Grey, although that she doesn't have a strong enough presence in these X-Men issues, I do think that she is better handled than the Wasp in Avengers.
Okay.
Maybe not as good as Invisible Girl and Fantastic Four. I think that's pretty good, even though it still kind of falls into the Jean Grey category, where it's like she's the girl from the '60s. She's constantly, oh, you boys, I'm gonna stay here and cook and clean for you. There's a little bit of that going on with Invisible Girl, but like I think the Wasp is bad in the original.
Really?
Avengers. Oh yeah, bad. Like Like the
I
Wasp.
haven't read him, so I don't know.
Yeah, she's the character that's like, they're like, we're gonna have our Avengers meeting and talk about the important thing that's going on, and they're like, okay, meeting adjourned, and the Wasp is like, thank God, now I can go shopping. And then like Ant-Man is like, what is it with you women folk and shopping? It's so bad. It's
It's one-dimensional, stupid.
It's really one-dimensional, yeah. And
yeah.
I mean, thank God something eventually became of those characters, but I did not think there's not a whole lot going on in the original issues. But I do think all of this is to say that I do think that Jean Grey's handled a little better, although she's still not. It's not enough. Like, she really doesn't do a whole lot in this issue other than sort of be support. And there's that critical panel where she like catches Cyclops.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. I do think it's good that, I mean, Kirby he's done a really good job of giving all of the team members moments to shine in the big fights.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, even in issue 3, or the original Blob issue, that was particularly bad. Mm-hmm. It had that cool bit where Jean Grey uses the knife to help them escape.
Yeah, that was actually
it's
probably
like
the
one of the coolest uses of her powers.
Yeah, she was actually the best in that sequence. Like that
right. It was really good.
Oops, sorry.
It was interesting. It was fun. No worries.
I can edit that out on my end.
Did you spill your drink?
No, I was filling it up.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, I don't know. I'll just say that Jean Grey doesn't do much in this issue, and it made me. I just thought it was kind of silly that
sewing.
They're all doing cool Danger Room things, and she's sewing.
Well, except for I can't really tell what Iceman is doing. He's just carrying around like a giant ice beam.
That's true.
Like the sequence is mostly focused on Beast and Angel, but yeah, and then Iceman does get to show off his new ice. He's even more icy than before. He's almost translucent.
Almost translucent. Not quite.
Yeah.
Approaching that.
Yeah. But yeah. Jean Grey sewing, and then, I mean, for no other reason than Stan Lee likes to pile on the drama, because this is where he shines. This is his bread and butter. Is the superhero, the classic trope of the will they or won't they, and the what is it, the overbearing responsibility of your duties preventing you from having a love life. And we get that in Cyclops.
Just can't do it.
Yeah, his long-winded thought bubble. I mean, this is Stan Lee's kind of getting into it. Like the whole thought bubble is crazy.
How gorgeous her lips are, how silken her hair is, how I love her.
But I dare not.
I dare not.
And as if
I dare not.
Yeah. As if that wasn't enough. I mean, I do love the next panel where he's like, he goes back into this whole, like, I haven't the right. He's really echoing Professor X from that awful, awful panel from issue 3, where Professor X is like, I love Jean Grey, but it's not my place. Not while I'm the leader and also crippled.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, that's right. We agreed that we weren't going to talk about that
I've just deleted that from my memory. So.
Right.
It's not a part of the X-Men
Cyclops
anymore.
kind of goes into that, where he's harping on himself. But then, at the end of the page, as if that wasn't enough of Cyclops to be constantly pining for her secretly, we got to have that little extra thought bubble of Jean Grey pining for Scott. Oh,
this is important, though.
It is, yeah.
Like, is this the first time where Jean's feelings have been revealed? I don't recall it in previous issues. Maybe I missed it.
I think it's the first.
Okay. Gotta double check that, but
I might actually have to fact check that because. Yeah. But you're right. Yeah, that is where with her saying she wishes that he felt about her the way she does about him. Mm-hmm. And it is. I don't know. It's just. Like, that's Stan Lee's thing.
It is. But at the very least, this isn't issue 3 where you just have, or previous issues, where every man is just like, well, she's the girl, I'm pining over her.
They're all
It's actually
secretly
like,
in
well,
love
these
with,
two characters like each other, but they don't know how to express it yet. So now you're kind of like, all right, maybe,
maybe there's a little something.
maybe I hope things work out. Maybe I don't. I don't know. I don't. There's been nothing by way of story to really show any sort of actual like chemistry between them so far.
Right.
But at the very least, you're providing a little bit from both sides to kind of get readers interested, versus just everyone having a crush on Jean and Cyclops having his dread power.
His awesome dread power.
Which just means he can't, have a normal life and care about people and have a girlfriend for some reason.
You don't know what it's like to have a dread power, Alex.
You're right.
Unless you do.
I was going through my list of powers, and none of them are dreadful, so nope.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I do think this might be the first emergence of Jean Grey reciprocating Cyclops' feelings. I can't say for certain. Because it's tough to say. It's tough to notice it because it's become so ingrained in the characters. But I don't think we've talked about it on any episodes since then. And I do think that this is the first thought bubble of Jean Grey actually saying that she feels deeply about Scott.
Mm-hmm.
So, might be wrong, but I agree. It is a little bit more. I will agree with you that it's at least a little more deftly handled by having these two characters having these internal desires rather than literally every character, as you said. It's
every male character,
including Professor X.
Yeah,
it's awkward,
bad,
not good. Yeah,
not good.
Yeah. So there's that.
There's that.
I
don't have a lot else to say. I feel like that's the. I mean, we can do our best panels MVP awards,
that's
as
what I
it
was
were.
going to say. That's pretty much where we're at. Yeah, I don't know. What would you say is your favorite panel of this issue?
I actually thought the art was kind of subdued in this issue.
Mm-hmm.
Not bad, but just it's a little more. It's just a little less dynamic from one panel to the next. It feels a little more normal, repetitive, kind of locked into the kind of simple sequences. So I didn't have a lot of panels stand out to me.
I agree.
I mean, the Lucifer panel is weird.
It's weird. Yeah.
And it's like this hell dimension. I don't know what's up with that.
It's pretty great in and of itself.
Yeah.
I mean, for silly panels, the panel of Unus in the diner with like the cake and the teacup and everything like spinning around him because it's all moving away from him. It's pretty good. But I mean, I don't know if I could say it's my favorite panel. Again, another silly panel. The end. This is like a sequence we didn't really talk about. This is when they still, when they still are trying to figure out how to stop Unus because they haven't understood that Beast's thing is gonna cause Unus to give up his ray, and so they're like Cyclops. They're coming up with plans to stop Unus, but while still keeping an eye on Beast. And the plan is that Angel will drop a giant plastic bubble on top of him.
Yeah, that is kind of a funny little bit.
It's just weird. Like, it'll be a portable prison. He won't be able to touch it, so it'll constantly move with him. Wasn't that already where he is? Like,
right.
It's like they don't quite understand what Beast did to him. Which I guess obviously is the point, because if they did, then they wouldn't think Beast was still trying to help Unus. But it's silly. But I mean, I wouldn't say it's like a great panel. I don't know.
It's an interesting idea, but like the art itself is a little.
Yeah,
nondescript. It's a little confusing.
Yeah,
Right.
I agree.
Without the words, I'd be like, what's happening here? I don't know.
I might actually have to say, I don't know, maybe another contender. I like being genuine here, not kitschy or silly. The panel where the crowd is turning on Beast and they're whipping themselves up into a frenzy, and it's that big fist in the foreground with a guy in the background. Okay. I actually think that's really, really well positioning. Like, that's a really well crafted panel, because the fist says everything. You got that clenched fist in the foreground, and that's what the focus is. And then you got this angry face in the background with this guy also kind of making fists. And there's still room for the two dialogue bubbles to kind of explain how they're all getting themselves whipped up into a frenzy, and they're mad at him. I actually like seriously, I would say that's a really well crafted panel.
I think I agree with you there. That's actually, I remember when I was first reading through this, I saw that fist before I had gotten to the words, and
exactly. But you knew what
it says aggression.
Exactly.
It says things are getting unpleasant here.
Right. You're subconsciously picking up on it, and that's the beauty of the marriage of dialogue and words, or I mean art and words, pictures and words.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So
that's an interesting one.
That would have actually probably be my legitimate favorite panel, because I think it's actually a really, really well crafted panel.
Yeah. No, it communicates well.
So, I don't know. Any final thoughts? I don't know. Is there even an MVP in this issue?
I mean, I guess I'd give it to Beast for the quitting the X-Men sequence.
Sure, yeah.
Beyond that, again, Unus didn't have any motivation, so I'm not going to give it to him. Beyond that, no, I don't think there's much here. But I do think the confrontation scene between Cyclops and Beast is good.
That's a good scene. I mean, I think it's the best part of the issue.
Yeah.
It's certainly the most dramatic and most compelling. Okay. Well, I'm trying really hard to think, and I just don't know how many Unus Speedos.
Unus Speedos
out of 5
with the Kirby graphic on the crotch.
Right, with that
That's not the crotch. It's like his midsection.
It's the midsection. It's like the weightlifter's belt.
Yeah.
But how many out of 5 would you give this issue?
2.5 or 3.
Yeah.
I feel like 3's too positive.
3's too much. 3's too much.
But
it's not as bad as the previous issues, which we've given 2.
Yeah. So 2.5?
I'm going to say 2.5. Yeah.
Okay.
I can agree to that. Because I think that there's some strong elements to it, and even the parts that are weak, I still was entertained by it. Although I admit I lost interest in it really fast, but the kitsch factor is strong, and at least it feels like it's trying to do something with the X-Men concept.
Yes.
More so than some of the previous issues, where it just sort of devolved into good guy, bad guy.
Magneto's gonna do something naughty today.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'll settle in. I agree. I'll settle in at 2.5.
Okay. I can live with that.
Well, all right. I think that's gonna call it for this episode.
All right.
I really don't think there's really nothing else we could say about it. We've complained about as much as we can. But thanks everybody for listening. Of course, you can find episodes of this podcast at comicdna.podbean.com, and you can find us on YouTube, Comic DNA channel on YouTube. My name is Aaron Walther. You can find me on Facebook, and I'm also on Twitter at AAWALTHER, AA Walther on Twitter. Alex, thanks for reading this issue. I look forward to the next issue. It's going to be pretty wackadoo.
All right.
I'm telling you that right now. It's all about Professor X and Lucifer.
Yes.
So, yeah, that should be fun. But
Good deal.
until then, thanks everybody for listening. We will see you all next time.